Welcome to episode 2 of the Copar rebuild project. If you missed episode 1, I recommend you go back and check that out. Get you up to speed. We basically took this car, got it disassembled down to this point. So today we can start installing the frame machine and pulling some of the damage out. First things first, gonna need to clean up our mess from yesterday. Perfect. And by clean up our mess, I mean make a pile in the parts car. So now with a fresh start, we can work on getting this jacked up and get the frame machine under. Got it all set up. There's a couple of things I'm not super sure about, so let me show you. So, I'm not certain that this is centered. I think it's close, but not for sure. This is how these clamp onto the car. In the first episode, we had to take the side skirts off that went right here to expose this pinch weld. And they just kind of, they're not tight yet, but they just kind of clamp the pinch weld. That way you're pulling on the body of the car and not on the suspension or anything. I'm not super sure this black tube is centered, but I think it's close. The other thing I'm not real sure about is if I should jack up the front on blocks to make this sit a little more level. I think that might not be a bad idea. But this is the setup. These take a 15/16 socket. I don't know how tight they're supposed to be, so I'm just going to use my 3/8 gun so I don't overdo it. And now the other side. And we'll keep an eye on these as we pull, and if it looks like they're slipping, then we'll tighten them up. So this frame machine comes with this rack of tools. It was included with the purchase, not sponsored, just something I bought on my own. I think it's got a pretty good selection. To hook it up is pretty easy. It's just got this threaded hydraulic quick connect. So you shove this in, and then this collar holds it tight. And that's it. That's all there is to it. The other adjustment we've got is this side to side, which tilts the mast left and right. So we've got it centered on the car, but we can lay this thing over to each side to be able to pull from one side of the car to another. And it's kind of heavy, but you pull this pin out and rotate the mast wherever you want it. So here's how I think we want to approach this. We want to kind of look at the damage and picture, which direction it got pushed. And it's kind of obvious with this bar right here, because this should obviously be straight. So it kind of looks like it got pushed down and in, rotated like that. So I think the first spot we want to pull on is right here and try to pull it out and up. The one thing I'm a little cautious about is this weld right here broke on the other side. So I think it's not much of a weld. So I want to be careful pulling on this with tons of force and have this snap and throw a chain or something back at our face. But if we have to weld this back up to keep pulling or something, we'll do that. The other thing I think we want to do is take this wheel and fender liner out so that we've got access to the frame rail behind there. So as we pull, we can one, look at it, but also hammer on it to relieve some of the pressure as we're pulling. As we pull the damage out, I think what we really want to be looking for is this body line right here. I think we want to pull until these two back doors, this one and the other one, shut and have a nice gap. Then we know all of the structure and frame behind this quarter panel is more or less where it needs to be. If we start cutting stuff off first, it's going to be almost impossible to pull this structure back where it needs to be, especially if the damage has progressed into the floor pan or something. It should all pop out as we pull this, rather than cutting it out and then trying to pull damage back out when you got nothing to pull on. So that's the plan. I think we're gonna pull until we've got this door lined up. Then we'll start cutting and replacing. Same thing on this side. We'll pull till this lines back up. All right, guys. So this really does not look bad at all, which is great. So here's kind of the frame rail. That's pretty bad, but everything in front of the frame rail looks pretty good. So I'm pleased to see that. I expected a little more carnage back here. Not bad. Okay, so I think we'll try that. See how that goes. What we're probably gonna have to do before we get too far is strip the interior on the parts car so that we can start making some measurements, and that way we don't over pull anything. I'm gonna throw this blanket on there. So if this lets go, the weight on the chain should keep it from flying back and being too dangerous. So I was kind of worried about this as we're putting pressure on the mast, it's pulling itself up. Some of them I saw online had a bar there that would touch the bottom of the car. I just don't want it to pull up and smash into the transfer case or the exhaust or something. So I think we'll let the pressure off and try to put a block of wood right there. We'll see if that makes any difference. That block of wood seems to have helped, so we'll keep going here. Stuff's starting to move. Now that we've got a bunch of tension on it, we'll start tapping on some of this with the hammer and see if we can relieve the pressure and help it pull out instead of just putting tons and tons of force on this one little spot. May have to make some relief cuts, but I'd really like to avoid it if possible. Very loud, so I'm going to put some earplugs in. Heard a noise, couldn't figure out what it was. It was the block of wood slipping out. Looks like our pinch weld clamp's been sliding, so fix that, keep going. Guess we'll check those periodically. So I'm not getting very good contact on this pinch weld. You see there's those little teeth in there. And since the car's not sitting level, the front teeth are okay, but the back are not. So I may have to jack up the front, put it on blocks, try to level the car out a little bit, get a little better pinch on that pinch weld so it quits sliding on me. I made some adjustments to our clamp down there, so let's try this again. It is really hard to tell if anything's actually moving as I'm hammering away on stuff. Alright, we're going to switch tactics real quick to try to pull this kink out of this metal bumper. So it's really hard to tell if stuff's moving, but I think it is. I think this brake line was a little tighter right there. I think that's moving. So I'm gonna move this brake line out of the way. See if I can. Maybe not. Yeah, I guess not. Don't know if I have a very good angle on the camera here. Kind of tight. So I cannot figure out how to do this without this pulling off. It lifts the car up off of this, and no matter how tight I get, it doesn't seem to matter. Definitely a skill issue. Pulling really hard on that frame rail. Stuff is moving, but just as soon as you start making progress, this thing starts slipping off. So I'm not really sure what to do. I think maybe I could slide the whole thing over. So I'm kind of thinking I could loosen that bolt and slide the whole red frame over here so that I'm pulling a little more in line with that frame rail, and maybe that's the problem. But there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff in the way. So I don't think I'm gonna be able to do that. Maybe if I take the exhaust off, I'll have enough room. So I kind of want to get a better look at the frame rail, which is right behind this. So if somehow we can get this off, or at least folded down, we may have a better angle to smack some of these wrinkles out of that frame rail. I'd like to try to pull from the bottom instead of pulling the whole thing. I'd like to see if I can pull just from the bottom to try to get this to lay back down, and it may not take quite as much force to do it. So this may not be a very good idea, but I've got this hook. I'm going to try to pull just on the bottom here. See how it goes. Alright guys, we're finally starting to make some progress. I think we're kind of pushing the limits on this setup here. And you can kind of see some of this has worked its way out a little bit. So, but there is a really bad crease right there that is just not wanting to budge. So, if you look in here, this is really starting to straighten out quite a bit. And then I noticed over here, this crease is starting to come out too. So I'm trying to kind of work some of this and this, try to work both sides at the same time. I think what might be our best bet to try to relieve some general tension in the area is to pull on this seam right here and try to work some of that out, and that may help us down below on the frame rail. I also noticed that this door almost shuts. Getting really close. So things are moving. Alright guys, I think we're gonna call this week's video a wrap. We're at a pretty good stopping point. I'm gonna sit, think for a day or so about maybe how we can attack this. And I think in the next episode, we will strip the interior out of that and start trying to get this fine-tuned. So hopefully in the next episode, we'll get all the frame pulling done. So let me know. You got any ideas on making my frame machine setup a little better? Let me know in the comments. If you liked the video, give me a like, subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one.